You just killed someone. Maybe it was a fight that went too far. Maybe it was on purpose. It doesn't matter yet. What matters is the next part. Because there are no police coming. There's no number to call, no court date, no jail cell waiting for you. It's 40,000 years ago, and the nearest thing to a government is the 20 people asleep around you. So here's the only question that matters now. And it's a question almost nobody ever thinks to ask. When there was no law, what happened to you? Because the answer isn't nothing. Humans have never once let a killing slide. And what they did instead is stranger, older, and honestly more brutal than any prison. For almost the entire history of our species, and we're talking 300,000 years, there were no police, no judges, no prisons, none of it. For roughly 95% of the time humans have existed, the most powerful institution on Earth was a small band of a few dozen people who all knew each other by name. And in a world like that, murder isn't an abstract crime against society. There is no society to be a crime against. There's just you, the person you killed, and everyone who loved them. Now, we tend to assume that a world without police must have been pure chaos, that without laws, anyone could kill anyone and simply walk away whistling. It's a comforting story because it makes us feel like we invented order. It's also completely wrong. Because these small communities policed murder more directly, more personally, and sometimes more ruthlessly than any modern state ever has. And we can actually prove how far back this goes. There's a skull, one specific shattered skull, that pushes the story of murder back to a date that should not be possible. We'll get to it. But first, we have to understand the oldest response a human being ever had to a killing. Because before there were laws, there was something much simpler. There was revenge. Put yourself on the other side of it now. Not the killer, the brother. Someone has just killed a member of your family. There's no detective who's going to knock on your door because there are no doors and there are no detectives. If anything is going to happen to the person who did this, it has to come from you. This is the blood feud, and for most of human history, across almost every culture we've ever studied, it was the default. You killed mine, so I kill yours. An eye for an eye wasn't a law handed down from on high, it was just what humans did. And for a while, revenge works. It's a deterrent. If everyone knows that killing a person means that person's family will come for you, most people think twice. But revenge has a fatal flaw. Because when you kill the person who killed your brother, their family now has a dead brother too, and now they're coming for you. One killing becomes two, two becomes four. A single moment of violence can set off a chain that burns through two entire families for a generation. And this wasn't rare. In one famous study of a foraging people in the Kalahari, anthropologists recorded 22 killings over a few decades, and many of them were exactly this: revenge, answered by revenge, answered by revenge, which forces us to confront something uncomfortable. We like to imagine ancient people as either peaceful, noble savages or mindless brutes. The truth is neither. And honestly, the debate still splits anthropologists to this day. Some argue early humans were remarkably peaceful. Others point to the archaeology, the mass graves, the weapons built only for war, and say violence was always with us. But here's what both sides agree on. Whatever the murder rate was, murder was almost never simply ignored. It demanded an answer. The problem was that the most natural answer, revenge, had a way of destroying the very people it was meant to protect. So somewhere, deep in our past, humans came up with one of the most quietly brilliant ideas in our entire history. A way to stop the bleeding without another body hitting the ground. They decided that a life could have a price. Here's the thing nobody tells you about early justice. Long before there were courtrooms, there were negotiations. Instead of the victim's family taking a life, the killer's family could offer something else. Goods, tools, livestock, valuables. A payment. In exchange, the family agreed not to seek revenge. The feud stopped. Nobody else had to die. It sounds cold, buying your way out of a murder. But think about what it actually does. It takes the most dangerous force in the community, the need for revenge, and it gives it somewhere to go that isn't another killing. This idea was so useful that when humans finally did start writing laws down, thousands of years later, this is one of the very first things they wrote. In early Germanic and Anglo-Saxon societies, it had a name: wergild. Literally, man price, the price of a human being. And they didn't stop at one price, they built an entire menu. A nobleman's life cost more than a commoner's. Different injuries had different rates. They sat down and calculated in cold numbers exactly what a person was worth. Now sit with how strange that is. We think of putting a price on human life as the ultimate insult, the most heartless thing a society can do. But for our ancestors, that price tag was mercy. It was the thing standing between one dead body and 10. It was the invention that let enemies walk away from a killing without either of them having to die for it. But there was a catch. This whole system only works if the killer has a family willing to pay, and if the victim's family is willing to accept. So what happened when there was no one to pay? Or worse, what happened when the killer wasn't a grieving man who lost his temper once, but someone who killed and would clearly kill again? This is where it gets dark. Because every community, in every era, eventually runs into the same person. The one who doesn't stop. The bully. The killer who's already paid off one feud and started another. The person everyone is quietly, individually afraid of. In a modern society, you call the police, and the problem becomes someone else's job. But in a band of 40 people, there is no someone else. There is only everyone. And an unchecked killer isn't just a danger to one family, he's a danger to the survival of the entire group. So the community faces a decision that we have almost completely forgotten how to imagine. Not, should he go to prison? There is no prison. Not, who will punish him? There is no one whose job that is. The question is rarer than that. Can we keep living beside this person or not? And here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. We assume that executing a dangerous person is something only a state can do. A king, a court, an official with the authority, but foragers had none of that. So they did something that, when you really picture it, is far more chilling and far more human. They did it together. Not one executioner, not a leader giving an order. The whole group arriving at the same terrible conclusion, and then acting as one. Because if no single person is responsible for the killing, then no single person can be blamed for it, and no new feud can begin. The community absorbs the act into itself. And this was not some rare horror story. In one landmark survey of foraging peoples, researchers found that more than 4 in 10 had, at some point, collectively put someone to death for terrorizing the rest. This was a tool, a last resort, but a known one. And we actually have a front-row account of exactly what it looked like. His name, as recorded by the anthropologist Richard Lee, was Twee. He lived among the Juhansi of the Kalahari, and he had already killed before, more than once. He was, in every sense the community understood, a man who would not stop. One day, a man named Zache made the first move. He struck Twee with a poison arrow. But Twee didn't fall quietly. He fought back, wounding a woman and a man who came near. And so, one by one, the others took cover. And then they all began to shoot. Not one hunter, all of them. And then comes the moment that has stayed with everyone who's ever read it. Twee, mortally wounded, sat down in the middle of the village, and he called out to them. He told them he was finished, that he had no breath left. He set his own weapons out of reach, so they'd know he wouldn't fight, and he told them to come and finish it. So they did. The whole band fired on him together, until, in Lee's account, his body was so full of arrows, it was compared to a porcupine. Every adult had a hand in it, which meant no one and everyone had killed him. Look at what actually happened there. That wasn't chaos. That wasn't lawlessness. That was a court, a jury, and a sentence carried out by an entire community that had no written law telling them they were allowed to. They didn't need permission. The authority was the group. And if you've never heard the human story told from the inside like this, that's the whole reason this channel exists. Every strange, buried, deeply human thing we've forgotten about ourselves, we dig it back up here. Stick around. Now, that skull I promised you. In a cave in northern Spain called Cima de los Huesos, the Pit of Bones, archaeologists pulled up a nearly complete skull they labelled Cranium 17. They rebuilt it from 52 fragments, and above the left eye they found two holes, two clean punctures, almost identical, made by the same object from two different angles. Two blows from the same weapon to the front of the face. Forensically, an accident doesn't do that. Two separate, aimed strikes to someone's forehead is not a fall, it's an intention. To researchers, it was the earliest evidence of one human being deliberately killing another, around 430,000 years ago. And here's a detail that gives me chills. That skull didn't get to the bottom of that pit by accident. It's down a 13-meter vertical shaft, along with the remains of at least 28 other individuals, which some researchers think makes that same pit the oldest evidence of humans deliberately handling their dead. The earliest funeral we've ever found. Think about what that means. At the very same site, in the very same deep human past, we may be looking at both the first murder and the first funeral. The killing and the grieving, right next to each other, because they always have been. And you can draw a straight line from that pit to the world you live in right now. The revenge became the feud. The feud got expensive, so humans invented a price. The price got written down and became law. The community that surrounded Twee became the jury of 12 strangers who decide a verdict today. Every courtroom on Earth is a descendant of a circle of frightened people around a fire, trying to figure out what to do with one of their own. So, what happened to you if you killed someone in a world with no law? The honest answer is that it depended entirely on who you were to the people around you. If you had family, they might pay for you. If your victim had family, they might come for you. And if you were a danger to everyone, then everyone came for you. Together. And no one had to carry the blame alone. There was never nothing. There was never a version of being human where killing simply didn't matter. And here's the part I can't stop thinking about. We tell ourselves that justice is a modern achievement, that we built it out of philosophy and paperwork and progress. But every piece of it was already there 400,000 years ago, in people with no writing, no cities, and no word for law. The instinct to make a killer answer to the whole group isn't something civilization gave us. It's something civilization inherited. Because the need to look at a death and refuse to let it pass is one of the oldest, deepest, most human things there is. You didn't invent your sense of justice. You were born with it, and it is ancient. The next time you hear someone say a killer needs to answer for what they did, understand what you're really hearing. That's not a modern idea. That's 40,000 years of humans standing around a fire, refusing to look away. That's you, doing what we have always done. And if murder was answered like this, wait until you find out what humans did to people who simply broke the rules. Because the way ancient societies punished ordinary crimes is on screen right now, and it's even stranger.